It's no surprise that humans have experienced a lot of pain. It's part of life. But in some ways, we've suffered more than other animals, often because of our own creativity. And this suffering isn't just a modern problem. It stretches back to all human species, all members of the genus Homo, most of whom disappeared long ago. Scientists estimate there have been around 14 Homo species. Except for us, all of them appeared and vanished within the last 2.8 million years. We, Homo sapiens, have existed for about 300,000 years, which sounds long until you compare it to the nearly 3 million years of Homo history. Suddenly, our time here feels very short. Thinking about those 3 million years, it's clear that the world our ancient relatives lived in was completely different, filled with different challenges, different pains, and very different kinds of death. Some ancient human deaths can't even be recreated today, not just because the dangers are gone, but because some events were truly unique. One such case involves the oldest known murder victim ever discovered. This skull, though similar to ours, belonged not to Homo sapiens, but to a Homo heidelbergensis, an archaic human who lived during the Middle Pleistocene. And this individual had a serious problem: 2 large, identical holes in the skull. Researchers found the remains in a Spanish cave and quickly realized the injuries were fatal, causing catastrophic brain damage. At first, they suspected a fall onto sharp rocks, common in caves, but 2 identical wounds didn't fit that explanation. Next, they considered an animal attack, but no known animal at that time could cause such damage. The injuries, however, closely matched those made by stone tools, suggesting the victim was attacked and killed by another human. This murder happened around 430,000 years ago, making it the oldest confirmed case of homicide. It shows that violence has deep roots in human history, long before Homo sapiens evolved. Interestingly, the cave held thousands of other human bones, some with signs of violence too. Scientists now believe this site could be one of the earliest examples of a burial ground, a place where the dead, regardless of how they died, were laid to rest. As for our unfortunate Homo heidelbergensis, he may have been killed in a dispute over resources or territory, a grim reminder that human conflict is almost as old as humanity itself. But arguably, the fate was still better than what happened to an individual known as 07. 07 wasn't a hybrid human, but a Homo habilis, one of the oldest and smallest human species, living in South and East Africa. These early humans stood only about 4 feet tall and were very fragile, making survival a constant challenge. But for 07, death wasn't just challenging, it was downright brutal. Unlike modern dangers, he fell victim to predators that no longer exist. 07 lived near ancient wetlands, home to many deadly animals. One day, while likely getting a drink, he was attacked by a giant crocodile. Not just any crocodile, but Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, the largest true crocodile species ever. This monster could reach 7.6 meters, 25 feet, and weigh over 2 tons. Based on the damage to 07's remains, the crocodile ambushed him. His left leg had massive puncture marks and parts were torn off, an injury that alone would have been fatal. But his nightmare didn't end there. In an incredibly rare event, he was likely attacked by a second predator, a big cat, probably similar to a leopard. Deep claw marks on the back of his skull suggest a feline pounced while he was distracted or wounded, following a typical big cat hunting strategy. Sadly, neither the leg wounds nor the head injuries showed any signs of healing, confirming 07 died during or very shortly after the attacks. While it's possible he died from the crocodile and was scavenged later by the cat, many researchers believe this was a rare, deadly two-predator assault, a brutal reminder of how dangerous ancient Africa was. Today, crocodiles and big cats still sometimes fight over prey, but thankfully, not involving extinct giants like C. thorbjarnarsoni. 07's death remains one of the most extreme prehistoric survival stories ever uncovered. But remember, the most painful deaths weren't always the violent ones. Take, for example, KNM-ER 1808, a 1.7 million year old Homo erectus from Kenya. She didn't die from an attack, but from something much slower, vitamin A poisoning. Her partial skeleton, discovered in 1974, showed abnormal bone growth, heavy bleeding inside the bones, and signs of long-term suffering, but no injuries. Researchers recognize these signs as hypervitaminosis A, a condition caused by consuming toxic levels of vitamin A. This makes her the oldest known human case of vitamin A toxicity. Her bones suggest she battled this illness for a long time before it finally killed her. Without modern knowledge of nutrition, she was likely unknowingly consuming too much vitamin A, probably from eating animal liver, which can store dangerous amounts. For example, a polar bear's liver today contains enough vitamin A to poison a human many times over. The symptoms she would have endured included weakness, headaches, peeling skin, hair and tooth loss, and severe joint pain, especially in the limbs where the worst bone damage was found. In the end, her death was slow, painful, and the result of one of nature's crueler lessons. Another prehistoric death that would have been truly terrifying was that of the Tong child about 2.8 million years ago. Today, when we feel scared outdoors, we usually look around or maybe beneath us, almost never above. But in ancient Africa, the skies were dangerous too. Giant predatory birds hunted early hominins, including unlucky species like Australopithecus africanus, to which the Tong child belonged. The young individual's skull showed horrific injuries, puncture marks under the eye sockets, and deep scratches on top of the head. These injuries matched those seen today in monkeys attacked by eagles, suggesting that a large bird had swooped down, struck the child's face and skull, and likely killed him quickly, or at least before hauling him away. However, the mystery deepens. Only the skull was ever found. No other bones, no nearby remains. It was discovered in a remote cave in the Kalahari Desert, a strange place for a body to end up. One theory is that the bird used the child's skeleton to build a nest, and over time, the skull dislodged and rolled into the cave, where it remained hidden for millions of years until rediscovery. After learning this, you might never look at birds the same way again. Water, essential to life, but also a cause of terrifying deaths, and drowning may have been the tragic fate of some of the last Homo erectus ever to live. Homo erectus was one of the most successful and long-lived human species, spreading from Africa into Europe and Asia. Their final stand appears to have been on the island of Java, where the youngest known erectus fossils, about 110,000 years old, were found. Almost 100 years ago, researchers on Java discovered a mass grave. Over a dozen adult erectus remains, all tangled together, without signs of disease or violence. The cause of death was a mystery, until the surrounding sediment offered a clue: a massive flood. It's believed that the floodwaters swept the bodies into a narrowing river, creating a carcass jam that fossilized over time, but it's likely they drowned before being carried away. One possibility is that a volcanic eruption triggered lahar flows, deadly floods of water and volcanic debris, which are known even today to devastate everything in their path, traveling over 60 miles and killing tens of thousands. If this theory is correct, then the Java fossils might capture the rare moment of an extinction event in action. However, Homo erectus' overall extinction wasn't due to a single disaster. Environmental changes, like the shift from woodlands to rainforest in Java, likely played a major role. Still, these fossils represent the last known erectus, a tragic but strangely poetic ending to one of humanity's earliest chapters. There's nothing poetic about this next case. It was pure horror. One of the worst ways to die in the prehistoric world was at the jaws of a hyena. These animals didn't just kill, they tore their victims apart while they were still alive, ripping off flesh with brutal force. But the hyena involved here wasn't your average scavenger from today's savanna. It was Pachycrocuta, a now extinct giant hyena that could weigh over 150 kilograms, 330 pounds, about the size of a lioness. Its massive skull and jaw muscles gave it an incredibly powerful bite, strong enough to crush bone and skull alike. Evidence of its deadly power was found in China at the Zhaokudian cave site, famously home to the so-called Peking man, a population of Homo erectus. There, over 28 human fossils were uncovered, and more than two-thirds of them showed violent signs of trauma, most likely from Pachycrocuta attacks. Some bones were smashed so badly that scientists believe the hyenas were trying to reach the bone marrow inside, or perhaps just consuming the bones whole. At first, the damage was so extreme that researchers thought these early humans had been victims of cannibalism. But once they looked closer, including at animal remains found in the cave, it became clear this had been a hyena den. Humans probably used the cave too, but at different times. Tools were found, but they didn't explain the level of destruction. The main culprits were the giant hyenas. This site reminds us that early humans were not always the top predators. In prehistoric China, Homo erectus often lost the fight against these powerful carnivores. Human bones with hyena damage are common, but the reverse is not. Even armed with stone tools, there wasn't much they could do against a lion-sized hyena. And to this day, modern hyenas still occasionally attack people, so we can be thankful at least that the giant ones like Pachycrocuta are long gone. Here's something we don't think about today: having a toothbrush. But for early humans, bad dental hygiene can mean a very painful death. Just ask the Turkana boy, also known as KNM-WT 15,000, a young Homo erectus who lived around 1.6 to 1.5 million years ago in what is now Kenya. Unlike the Peking man specimens that were mauled by hyenas, Turkana boy wasn't killed by an animal or a violent injury. This cause of death was more subtle, but just as deadly. His fossilized jaw shows signs of a serious dental abscess. After his baby teeth fell out, Some of his adult teeth, molars and premolars, grew in the wrong way and collided. This caused tissue damage and eventually a painful infection. That infection likely turned into an abscess which never healed. Based on the state of his teeth and jaw, scientists believe that this could have led to sepsis, blood poisoning caused by bacteria. Today, sepsis is difficult to treat even with modern medicine. Back then, it would have almost certainly been fatal. Turkana Boy died young, around 8 or 9 years old. His final moments likely weren't peaceful either. Based on where his remains were found, researchers believe that while sick and weakened, he may have collapsed face first in a swamp and drowned. Then, not long after his death, his body was trampled by a herd of animals, pushing him deeper into the mud, where it eventually fossilized. And that still wasn't the end of his misfortunes. Later, part of his skeleton was buried under volcanic ash from a local eruption, trapping him in a kind of prehistoric tomb for over 1 million years. If that weren't enough, early researchers once thought he also suffered from dwarfism or scoliosis due to his oddly shaped ribs. More recent studies suggest that wasn't the case, but they did find he had severely herniated disc in his spine. This would have caused serious back pain and limited mobility, making it even harder for him to escape danger or hunt for food. In short, Turkana Boy was hit with multiple hardships: a deadly tooth infection, a spinal injury, and possibly a traumatic death in a swamp. His case is a sobering reminder that things we now treat easily, like a toothache or a slipped disc, could mean death in the ancient world.